For us, there's three areas that we believe Evo is going to. So I'm just moving over to the other screen. But Evo is going to help our HR professionals, right? And that's in productivity, time and cost efficiency, and employee experience and satisfaction. And some of the examples we'll see today show you examples of each of those. But as you can see, if about 40 to 60% of HR time is spent in administrative tasks, how do we start to alleviate that and remove that? How do we give more self-service to our employees? And allow them to find the information that they need and have a bit more autonomy. And Luke's going to give us an example of that, which is pretty exciting. And again, employees spend an average of 5 hours a week just looking for that internal information. If we can surface that easily, they feel more confident and they have a better experience again with their employer and yourselves, obviously. So, and the time and cost efficiencies, we're saying we did a bit of an average. That's about $10 Aussie. Per HR inquiry. So over the studies, they've said each HR inquiry is about $10. You can imagine the more you get, that money being spent on those, you could be putting that to other initiatives and higher value initiatives. But automating those HR policies through the self-service, again, reduces those inquiries. What we want to do is be able to, for employees to feel that they can interact with the teams, but do it in a more autonomous way. And again, through, their mobile apps, through their PCs and so forth as well. So the employee experience is super important. And that's where we want to lean in on with the type of programs and tools that we'll be providing you through MicrOpay Evo. One of them is around recognition. So Luke will touch on that. It's pretty important, this peer-to-peer recognition. We use it a lot at Access. I think what it does is it just fosters a sense of appreciation across the business. Most people love to get a shout out, as we call it. And it's something that really doesn't take much time to do, but it's super, super important to the business. Let's move on and let's have a look at this in action. So I'm going to get Luke Thomas on stage to take us through how we bring this in practice. So over to you, Luke.
Thanks, Steve. And is that my screen coming up?
Looking great. Homer's never looked better.
Beautiful. So what I wanted to do today was talk through the process and show the setup for three main areas, one being collaborate, the other one being that engage functionality, and then lastly, the applause that we were talking about, and really how that impacts or how your employees, not necessarily your payroll staff, but how the rest of the broader organization are going to interact with these tools. So if we start at the granddaddy of them all, which is really Copilot. So Copilot has the ability to look at analytics. So that's your payroll data. And so that's probably going to be restricted just to your payroll function. But certainly the ability to ask questions of the ATO and Fair Work is something that will be available to the employees. But the big one that really is going to impact the employees is going to be around Evo Docs. And so that's where we can come into Copilot, and an employee can ask information about your business that you may store in your policy documents. So something as simple as, where do I, at the Sunshine office, bear with me in my terrible typing. And so the idea is that there's a couple of things that, do not tell me that. That's an awful demo. That just, I'll come back to that in a moment. But the relationship between, and I did test that like 3 minutes ago. The relationship between Copilot and those skills, particularly as it relates to Evo Docs. Evo Docs are related to this product, which is Collaborate. So if I come to Collaborate, I'm going to be greeted with a number of sites. So each site is created for a specific group of people. And so if I come down to this MicrOpay Evo Collaborate site, you can see I've got 149 people that are invited to that site. And what I'm able to do is upload documents and assign tasks within that site. Now, any document that we upload into this site, if we set it so that that Copilot's able to access that document, then employees are going to be able to come and ask questions of that document. So I want to take you through a simple example of what that setup would look like. I'm just going to come in and create a site. You'll come in here and it'll be blank. You need to go and create a site. I'm going to create a site, and this is just Stephen and I. I'll use the correct English because my grandma would get mad. Okay, so I've now just created a site which is for Stephen and I. I've created the site. The next thing I need to do is come and invite some members. So I'm going to come and invite people. Now, I could create this, and I could just invite people from outside the organisation. So let's say you had an external accountant, or you had a tax advisor that you need to be able to get information to and collaborate and share. Rather than attaching it to an email, which is going to be pretty insecure, we can have a secure space. In this case, I'm just going to invite Stephen. So it's going to go and look at our registry of employees. There's Stephen, and I'm going to give him an ability in here to contribute. I don't want to give him administrator rights. And a short message. So once I've created that site, I'll come back to Stephen and my site. We don't have any documents in here. The first thing that I can do is upload a document. So I'm going to go in and navigate. And in this case, I'll find an OH&S document. And so I'm now going to come in and say, right, I want this document to be able to be discoverable by Copilot. So I'm going to select that. That document will now be able, Steve will be able to ask Copilot questions about this document. But I can also assign a task. So I'm just going to ask Steve to check the document and sign. And I'm going to give him till, we'll give him till, I don't know, mid next week to get that sorted. I'm going to give it a priority. The progress is starting low, but I'll give it a priority of high so he knows he needs to actually spend a little bit of time through that. And then I'm going to come through and save document. So once that document's saved, it's available to be consumed by Copilot, and it will allow anyone that is a member of this team to be, or this site, to be able to use Copilot to ask questions. And so where we see customers starting to use that is they're creating a site which is a shared space for most of their employees. They upload their policy documents, and now what they've got is a case deflection. So instead of the calls coming through to you to have to answer, the employees are able to go and self-serve off your library of policy documents, which means you're not getting the emails, you're not getting the phone calls. You can stay dedicated and focused on your work, which is really, really powerful. So that was the first one, which is around Copilot and being able to get documents so that they can be shared through Evo Docs. The next one is Spaces. So Spaces and Engage, there's a relationship between these two things. If I come into Spaces, I can have shared spaces, and these are spaces that would be set up by the admin function, and I can have a personal space. And so if I look here, what I do get, I'll just close this screen. I get the welcome. So welcome screen is really a screen that would be designed by the organisation. We can start to influence culture, but certainly from my perspective, I like this as a case deflection. If I can provide all the information that people within the business need, then they're less likely to come and ring me or email me or come through, other collaboration tools, because I can surface information. So this is a site that we've created around Evo. So we've got all the articles, etc., so that people understand what they need. We've got ability to come and find learning. So we can create these sites that can then be used by employees. Michelle, that we've seen before, she's created another public site, which is just a list of all of the feeds that you would be able to get throughout the system. So all the information that needs to be surfaced can be surfaced in one area. And then I can have my own personal dashboard. So if I'm not an admin, I can still come and create a space that works just for me. I'm just going to take you through, because when you come into Evo, you're not going to have any spaces set up. So you'll come in and add a space. We'll call this Steve's webinar space. And so that will open. And what we have is basically a blank space. Again, I'm an admin, so I can come in and create this space. Then I can come in and add these apps. And really it's about determining exactly what of the Evo apps that you want to include within this space. So, you know, an easy one is going to be, I want to have a registry of all of my colleagues so I can find them. I want to find my outstanding tasks. It could be I've got a social feed, so I want to be able to get that. Now, as we add those in, they will then just default into the screen. You've got the ability to reposition and restructure. And so what we're doing here is we're basically creating a site that we can open up to a given team or to all employees, where they're going to be able to come and find the information that they need without having to go anywhere else. We have got customers now, while we sort of talked about that company-wide welcome screen, they're actually starting to go in and create screens that are related just to the payroll function and also just to the HR function. So rather than having all those calls coming through, surface the information so that the team are able to use it. And then the last one that I want to talk about is really just the application in here, which is going to be, just bear with me, is the Applause product. And this is what Abby was talking about. The Applause is obviously a peer-to-peer recognition system. It's fairly simple. It is straightforward. I do get the ability to come and look at a company feed. I can have my feed, so only things that relate to me. Now, what I will call out is, you know, Steve sort of talked about the impact that this capability has. That is, you know, appreciating your colleagues, thanking them, and shouting out. Now, I did do a quick run through this morning just to make sure that everything was working, and I put in a feed to one of my colleagues, which is Glenn, and I just said, thanks for the brilliant discovery you did with that prospect. I think we're a really good fit, and that then and thanks for all that hard work. Now, I just did that as I needed to fill this out, just test that it was working. 10 minutes after I sent that off, I got a message coming back saying thanks, and then he came through and phoned me, thanking me for the work that we're doing together. So it's actually amazing to see the results that we can get out of here. But within here, it's pretty simple. I'm going to come in. I'm going to give a shout out to a colleague. In this case, it's going to be Steve again, because I'm picking on him. He's my bunny today. So we select Steve Duncan. You could select multiple, you know, colleagues. And then I'm going to choose the attribute. So what am I thanking him for? I'll just give him thanks for caring. And it's going to be a simple note that'll be, thanks, Steve, for getting the best presenters. He's probably going to disagree with that, but now what I can do is I can also send additional messages to that person's report or direct manager, whether should I choose to, and then it's simply a matter of send and finish. And so what now the company will see is that I'm now thanking Steve for getting me to perform, which is a backhanded compliment to myself, which is kind of sad, but we'll move forward. So that really brings us to that final piece, which is that applause. And again, it's a really, really simple, nice way to recognise your colleagues. I was sceptical when we first sort of rolled this out internally at Access a few years ago, but it's amazing to see the appreciation that the people, you know, people being recognised. It makes an absolute difference, and it's a really good way to sort of get your colleagues on board. Steve, was there anything else we wanted to cover? I'll let you come back on board.
She's got me. Here I am. No, I do get the right of refusal on that comment, don't I, about presenters. But you did a great job, mate. You did a fantastic job. Thank you.
Just change slides. So obviously, probably I think about March, we introduced early pay into MicrOpay, and early pay is the ability for your employees to get access to their earned wages prior to actual payday. So from a payroll lens, the benefit of that is that you could be, instead of doing things like out-of-cycle payments and whatnot, that an employee can basically get control of when they actually retrieve their funds or receive their funds for a particular pay. It has numerous benefits that are, I think, a bit of a step change for how we think about this kind of a product normally. It has been measured, and there's some stats on the screen there to show that it does provide a significant employee benefit. And one of the things that I think dawned on me is that in the old days, this kind of thing would be addressed through like an out-of-cycle pay, but there's actually quite a lot of work in an out-of-cycle payment. And in what we know these days is that a lot of people may not feel comfortable actually approaching an employer to discuss, their money issues and whatnot. Whereas if you give them the power of being able to retrieve their funds in hand, it's something that they can, you're providing the power of that choice to your employee. Without having to have the awkward conversations as to why it is that they need an advance pay or something like that, or just getting access to their funds prior to payday. So it can certainly provide significant benefit to employees. It has been measured to do so, and it can include things like employee retention, adoption. When it comes to employer of choice, it's all these things that will actually aid to providing that kind of an edge to yourself as an employer. So certainly something to think about, I would say. We're not going to talk in depth about it today because we are over time, but in terms of how this works, whilst it provides your earned wages early, it also has the ability you can purchase things like vouchers and whatnot at a discount as well. So it's not just purely about your own earnings. It's also about the ability to provide discounted, vouchers to things like JB Hi-Fi and to, I think, Coles and Woolworths or something. In terms of how it all works with MicrOpay, it's all directly integrated. So there's not a lot of legwork for the administrator. So if you're an administrator of payroll thinking, this means more work for me, don't be too concerned about that. It's all directly linked and it's all powered by Evo. So again, Evo coming into the forefront of how this works. And what it means is that Evo basically feeds information from MicrOpay, and then Evo is then sending that information to the Early Pay app, and the app will then automatically have the ability to show that employee what amount of money they can retrieve at a particular point in time. If they do retrieve those funds, then that becomes that goes through in the next pay as a deduction to recover those funds. And the key thing about this, though, is that also the funds are advanced by Access, so it's not something that your business has to be worried about. Access actually provides those funds to that employee, and in the next pay run, we retrieve those funds, and there is a fee for usage. So it's a $5 fee for I think it was $5, I don't remember, something like that, for every time an employee uses those funds. All the transactions, all the fees, all those terms and conditions, so to speak, are all displayed on the app when that employee is using it. So it's very, very clear what it is, how all this works to the employee. The adoption is very simple. Like any app, you get a link, you get a username and a password, and off you go. It's all very much a self-adopted kind of product for the end user. That's something to think about. If you are interested in early pay, please reach out to us or leave your details in chat, or as usual, I always leave my email address in the chat, so feel free to hit me up directly on email and I can put you in touch with your account manager.
I was going to say, Anthony, I put the link into the next slide I'm going to show you, but we've actually built a dedicated, obviously, page for this. It contains a lot of information, a lot of the stuff that Anthony showed, videos. There is a whole training program around this as well. So the heavy lifting is done for you as an employer to get this up and running with your employees. So we just wanted to take that burden away. It's a great little program, I think. My son actually uses it. It's it's not Early Pay, it's a different app, but he sees the value of it. Yeah, similar products. So
I think the way to think about it is that, if 5 years ago you said to me, would you jump into a car that pulled up on the sidewalk and actually jumped in and used that particular car to take you somewhere? The answer probably would have been no. Whereas now Uber is just a normal thing. I think what's going to happen is that things like Early Pay and AI and all these kind of tools that are there for the employee are just going to become part of normal business. So if you're not thinking it's part of your normal business now, it may not be right now, but I think it will be in future. And what we're seeing is actually all our large employers are reaching out to us to actually install this. So our 2,000 and 3,000 and 4,000 employer sites are the ones that are actually jumping onto it first, which is really interesting. And they're kind of usually the first movers in products and adoption of new technologies. So what that will mean is that, if you're a smaller employer, it's going to become something you're probably going to need to think about at some point, I would expect.